Welcome back to the Top Notch Leader. I'm Terrence Colson, and this is where we empower leaders and we transform teams. Today, we're going to be talking into foundational yet often misunderstood skill of goal setting. We're going to deep dive into this, but we're going to do it in a way where it's not drawn out, and we're giving you tools, and we're going to give you ways that you can action this right out the gate. So let's get into it. Okay, so today I want to talk about goal setting. I think later we're going to get into some more advanced stuff, and this is a good foundational skill as we get into developing this toolkit for you guys to be super successful in the way that you're leading your teams and looking at leading higher levels of teams, whether that's higher performing or just larger teams. Okay, so I just want to jump straight into it. All right. Setting goals isn't just about writing down aspirations. It's not a vision board, right? When we talk about goals, it's about creating a clear roadmap that aligns teams, drives performance, and ensures success. Okay. Whether you're leading a small business, managing a mid-sized team, or running a high-level executive operation, the way you set goals will determine your results. If you're not setting appropriate goals, you're not going to get the results you want. And so sometimes we set goals and we think our head's in the right place and we're moving in the right direction, and then we don't see the results and we think the system's broken, or we think I'm in the wrong market, or I just suck at this thing. But really what you're probably doing is you're setting the wrong goals. And so our goal here is to get you more in line with setting the correct goals to get the correct actions. And this is actually going to feed directly into the next episode. So look for that when you're done with this one, okay? So in today's episode, we're going to be talking about the SMART goal framework, and we're going to talk about using that framework effectively. We're going to talk about aligning individual, team, and organizational goals. We're going to talk about the roles of KPIs, which are key performance indicators, and we're going to talk about the role of those in measuring success. And then the last thing we're going to talk about is some common mistakes that leaders make when they set goals, and more importantly, how you can avoid making those mistakes. So let's get after it. By the end of this episode, you're going to have tools that are going to help you set powerful, measurable goals that actually move the needle. All right? That's the last thing we want to do, is put in all this work, all this effort, and we just get nowhere. We feel like production isn't happening. We feel like growth isn't happening. And we're going to avoid that by giving you the tools to do that today. All right? So moving right into it. Why does goal setting matter? Sometimes we can get lost in this idea that, like, I do one thing and that's my thing. And as long as I'm meeting whatever my requirement is, like, why do I need goals? Because I can just have a standard. I need to make 3 appointments before lunch, and I need to make 4 appointments after lunch. And if I do that, I go home. Why do I need goals? Because I'm getting paid. I like what I'm getting paid. I'm a high performer. I hit all my metrics. What's the deal? Okay. Many leaders assume that setting a goal is simply saying, like, hey, we want to increase sales, or hey, we want to set a standard. But really, like, improving sales or increasing team communication is vague. It's not direct in its assertiveness to get after something, and it doesn't really take you anywhere. You want to progress. Even if you don't want to promote into a higher leadership position, even if you don't want to, like, move different departments and you're happy where you're at in whatever infrastructure you're in right now, you still want to get better, because being better means, like, you're going to naturally get more fulfillment from that. Okay. So, what happens when teams lack clear goals? If you go through that mentality where you're creating vague goals, or you're just kind of willy-nilly saying, like, nah, I think I kind of want to get better at X. You're creating vague goals, and vague goals lead to vague results. You don't want vague results. So it's important to understand, like, what are some of the negative effects? What are some of the cons of setting vague goals? And then we'll get into, like, what do great goals do? And, like, how to use SMART goals and things like that, okay? So first of all, what happens when teams lack lack clear goals. A couple of things. One, employees feel disconnected. If they don't today, they will in a couple weeks, in a couple months, in a year. They're going to feel disconnected from the company's vision. They're going to start to feel like they're just like chugging away at this task, that this chore, it's not fulfilling. Meh. But if they can align their daily iterations of whatever they're responsible for doing to the vision of the company through goals, they're going to understand their connection to that higher purpose, like we talked about before, and that's going to help them stay motivated and empower them to feel like they have a purpose when they come to work, no matter what the task is. Okay. Another thing is when you lack clear goals, your performance is going to plateau. All right. You might come in somewhere as the leader, or there might be a shift in things, or you get a new team member, or you just decide, hey, we're going to invigorate stuff here, and your performance goes up, and it goes up, and it goes up, and then it plateaus. This is not like weight training. This is not one of those things where it's like, oh, I'll just make a little arbitrary change, and that's enough to trigger my body to be like, oh, this is different. And then you start gaining on your lifts again. That's not what this is, right? When you have vague goals, all you're going to do is you're going to plateau, and you're going to transition to another vague goal. And then you might feel like you're progressing, but it's just going to be like this. And you're going to go right back because you created like a glass ceiling for yourself because you don't have clear goals. Okay. And then lastly, leaders struggle to measure success effectively, which means you get frustrated. You don't know how to improve because you haven't learned how to measure success. By implementing clear, specific goals, using the framework we're going to use here in a minute, you can clearly identify what success means, which then relates to you being able to actually assess and measure the good and the bad and where you're hitting the mark and where your team's not hitting the mark. And then you can move forward and you can make appropriate adjustments instead of just like throwing darts in the dark, hoping to hit a bullseye. All right. So what do great goals do? So on the flip side of that coin, if we have really good goals, we're going to provide clarity so everyone knows what success looks like. I can come to work every day and I clearly understand what I'm aiming for outside of the individual tasks because I can get the to-do list done and then it's like, all right, cool. But you're not necessarily going to feel like you accomplished something, especially once you've done something for a while and it becomes more second nature. You're just kind of churning through the task. You want people to know what success looks like because they're going to naturally strive for that when it's clear and it's achievable. Okay. So you're going to provide clarity. You're going to create accountability. If I know what the standard is because I've set goals, right? And when I know what benchmarks have been set, I'm going to be able to hold people accountable when they don't meet those goals. Now, holding people accountable doesn't necessarily mean you're yelling at people if they don't hit their goals. Maybe it was something out of their control. Maybe they're working on a shortened timeline. Maybe there's things within their control and it's just a matter of a little bit of training, make an adjustment, do the thing. Maybe they're new to the team and they're not expected to hit the goals yet, but where are they at in relation to the rest of the team's goals? And are they on track to get on par? These are the types of things that you can do and you can track because you can have accountability of who's responsible for what as far as task completion, but also as far as performance and production. Okay, provide clarity, create accountability, and lastly, great goals drive motivation. You need people to want to do their job. If people don't want to do their job, you are running out of rope really quick. And so you have to find ways to get people to want to work hard for you. And one way to do that is to create great, specific, achievable goals, right? And so having a compelling goal fuels engagement and makes people naturally be more proactive about stuff. Okay. So we want you to be able to provide clarity. We want you to be able to create accountability, and we want you to be able to drive motivation. And so in order to do that, we have to create great goals. So now that we know what great goals can do and we know what not great goals can do, what we're going to look at now is the SMART goal framework. All right, this is probably something you've heard before on the internet or in any self-help or professional help books that you've looked at. But I promise you, this framework is tried and true, and it's effective, and that's why it's so prolific when you look at different readings and things like that. Okay, so the SMART framework, it needs to be specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. I'm going to say that again: specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, time bound. SMART. So what we're going to do is look at each of these. One, it's got to be specific. The more into the weeds you can get with this, the better. Okay, the more specific it is, the easier it is to put a pin in whether or not you've hit that goal or not. And the more vague it is, it's like fuzzy vision and you can't see anything, right? It's like trying to drive a car through a snowstorm. So specific. The next one is measurable. A measurable goal could be measured along time. It could be measured along metrics, quantifiable data, whatever that looks like. But you have to be able to literally measure it, okay? So if it's like, I want to run a mile a day for the next 90 days, okay? 1 mile, 90 days. You can measure that, and you can determine at any point along that 90-day journey whether or not you are on pace or you've fallen behind pace or you're ahead of pace, okay? So specific, measurable. They need to be achievable. When we say achievable, what we don't mean is low-hanging fruit. What we don't mean is that it's so easy to reach this goal that it's not enticing, right? That it's not motivating. But you also don't want to set that goal so far off into the proverbial distance that like it's not even worth going after because there's no way we're going to accomplish that, right? Hey guys, our sales team closes an average of 15 sales a day. Starting next week, we want to close 80 a day. So get after it. Like that, it's not gonna fucking happen. You know what I mean? And everybody's gonna be like, I think I'm gonna go work somewhere else if this doesn't fizzle out really quick. And you've now demotivated people instead of motivating people, okay? So your goals have to be achievable. They need to be relevant. So what you don't wanna do is set a goal that's not specifically relevant to what you're trying to accomplish, all right? I'll give you an example of this. I have a specific goal within my fulfillment facility that says, okay, I want to increase packaging by 20%. That's relevant to what I'm doing, right? If I'm the overall company, that's going to feed into a larger vision. But if I am the digital marketing team for this same company, my goals should give two shits about fulfillment, right? Now, we want to understand how we tie into the bigger picture of the company or the organization, but I don't care about fulfilling orders. What I care about is getting leads through the funnel to make an order so that the fulfillment team has a fucking job, right? That's what we're looking at. So specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and then time bound. 90 days, 6 months, fiscal year, every week, every month, whatever that looks like. You need to put a time-bound deadline for completion for that goal so that you can measure whether you're on pace, and then you can measure whether that goal is complete or not complete, okay? So if your goal is specific, if it's measurable, it's achievable, it's relevant, and it's time-bound, it's going to be a good goal. So what would be some examples of goals, all right? I'm gonna give you a week goal, and you're probably gonna be like, yeah, that's clearly a week goal. That's good. That means that this either just clicked and I'm the greatest teacher ever, or you already kind of had an understanding of this. Here's a week goal. We need to improve customer satisfaction. That is trash. Why? Because how? How do we know we're improving customer satisfaction? How much do we want to improve it? In what time period would we like to improve our customer satisfaction? And like just in general ever would be nice, right? There's nothing there for you to like sink your teeth into and try to get after. So let's turn that into a SMART goal. Instead of saying, we need to improve customer satisfaction. Let's change it to, we are going to increase our net promoter score, or NPS, from 70 to 85 within the next 6 months by implementing a new customer feedback and follow-up process. Do you see how those don't even sound like they're in the same realm, right? We need to improve customer satisfaction. If I don't have a background in a field that's going to help me actually drive these things, and I'm the person that's on the phone, I don't understand it. Like, I don't understand how I just need to be nicer on the phone. I need to give every customer what they want. I don't know how to get after it. But if I say that we need to increase our net promoter score from 70 to 85 within the next 6 months, then that's a pin on the wall, right? We need to get from here to here. So it's been measured, right? And I would imagine that going from a 70 to an 85 is achievable. It's not so easy that it only takes a week to get to your goal, but it is achievable, okay? So it's measurable, it's achievable, okay? It's relevant because that's gonna literally give you your customer satisfaction, like your net promoter score. And then it's obviously way more specific now, okay? It's time bound. And then the last piece is, like, when we talk about specific, we're going to do that by implementing a new customer feedback and follow-up process. Like, you've got all the tools you need to go chase the goal now, okay? And you can feel empowered to do that. Let's go over another one. All right, week goal. We should have better leadership development. Listen, I'm in the military, and this is something we talk about all the time, okay? We have an official doctrinal thing called LPDs, Leader Professional Development, Leader Development Program. The whole point is to build leaders. That is a shitty goal, though. Like, if we need to have better leadership development, okay, cool. Like, I guess I'll just try harder to develop leaders. But again, there's nothing to sink your teeth into. So let's turn that into a SMART goal, okay? We are going to implement a leadership coaching program for all mid-level managers by Q3 with at least 80% participation and a 10% improvement in employee engagement scores. Do you see how we've used S, M, A, R, and T? Do you see how we've gone in and we've made it very, very, very specific? We've made it measurable, okay? Right? At least 80% participation and 10% improvement. We've made it achievable, okay? We're going to implement a coaching program by Q3. Let's just say this is the beginning of the fiscal year, okay? Boom. By Q3, we need to have this program in place. And then 80% participation, and then only a 10% improvement in employee engagement scores. 10% is a jump, but it's not so outlandish that you're like, nobody's going to want to work here that fucking bad, right? So it's achievable. It's relevant to what you're trying to get after, which is like having better leadership development, and it's time bound by Q3, okay? Last one, week goal. We need to close more deals. Hey, thanks, Tom. We know we need to close more deals, but like, what does that even mean? All you got to do is turn that thing into a SMART goal, and you're going to be able to have a defined direction to go so that you can hit your goal. So instead of Tom being like, we need to close more deals, Steve can be like, hey, we need to increase our sales conversion rate from 15 to 20% within the next quarter by improving our lead qualification process and providing advanced negotiation training for the sales team. And then all of a sudden I'm like, you know what, Steve? I think you're onto something. I think we can do that. And now my wheels are turning, and I'm like, okay, I've got some ideas for some negotiation training and some resources that we can bring in, and we want to increase our lead qualification process. I've got some things we can use, or I know Susan off in the corner has been talking about this low key for a while. So there's some stuff we can get after to do this. And I think we can hit 20%. I know you said 15 to 20%, but I think we can hit 20%. We got 90 days to do this. Let's knock it out because it's due in the next quarter. You see that? Like, you've just empowered the person that you're in charge of to like own the goal because they have all the tools they need, the who, what, when, where, why, the SMART framework. Okay. So those are some 3 examples. That's how you do it. When you turn your goals into clear, measurable objectives, you make it easier for your team to take action. They're empowered. They understand their purpose. They have a vision. They can connect to it, and they can use that to be motivated to do their thing. The next thing we're going to talk about is KPIs. All right. So what are KPIs? We talked about it in the beginning. Those are key performance indicators. To understand how to use the KPIs, we're going to dig a little bit into them, and then we're going to talk exactly about that. How do we use them? All right. So a KPI is a measurable value that indicates progress towards a goal. That's how you track whether you're hitting your goals or if you're not hitting your goals. Okay. Simple target practice. It's either a hit or it's a miss. But the KPI enables you to kind of quantify the hit and the miss instead of just relying on a feeling. Okay. So KPIs should be directly tied to your SMART goals. And that way you make sure your KPIs are aligned, but that your goals and your vision and your metrics and everything are all locked in, lined up. Okay. So here's some examples of some KPIs, because these aren't difficult. Sales team KPIs: revenue growth percentage, sales conversion rate, average deal size. You see how these are all numbers. Average deal size has a $sign by it. Okay. Revenue growth percentage, not are we growing or are we not growing, but at what rate are we growing by percentage? And then you could even break sales team up by revenue growth percentage by month, by week, by quarter, whatever that looks like. Okay. So that's an idea for a sales team. Talk about customer service. Maybe you're in a customer service business, or you're a CEO, founder, and you're mainly doing like a service-based business. Some things you can look at: customer satisfaction scores, your CSAT, a net promoter score. What is your net promoter score? That's going to tell you if your customers are satisfied or not. Your average response time, your net promoter score, your average response time. Again, you're talking about scores on things that quantify how good you are at doing the thing, at providing customer service. You're looking at a clock, your actual average response time, whether that's to emails, voicemails, DMs, comments, whatever. And then again, anything with time or money or any quantifiable thing, you can then break that up, and you can say like average response time for DMs on social media, average response time for emails, average response time for returns, whatever that looks like. Okay. So that's customer service. But what if you're just in a leadership position, and not like just in a leadership position, like you don't fucking do anything, but like, what if you're in a position where you're in HR, you're in a leadership position, you're managing people, and you need to set KPIs, and maybe you're a little bit higher up to where you're not necessarily hyper focused on your average response time. You've got somebody who deals with that, and you're up higher. Okay. You can look at things like employee engagement scores, a retention rate of high performing employees. You could balance that against retention rate of low performing employees. If low performers, if like C players want to work for you and A players don't want to work for you, that's an easy way to create a metric, right? And so you can build KPIs around that. Completion rate of leadership training programs. You implement a leadership training program, you can then come up with metrics for like how well are people developing, how well do they score on the final out test, or their demonstration skills. So how much are they learning from the training in a quantifiable manner? How many of your leaders actually completed the training? Things along those lines. Okay. So now you've got some KPIs that you can align against your SMART goals, and you can move into this space where you're identifying specific things for your team to accomplish, and then you're broadcasting, this is the measuring stick that we're going to use to determine if we're being successful or not. Again, let's dive a little bit deeper into KPIs and SMART goals and like how they're connected. So to put it all together, let's just say your SMART goal is to increase employee engagement scores from 72 to 80% by the end of the year through leadership training and cultural initiatives. You have your SMART goal, increase employee engagement from 72 to 80% by the end of the year through training and cultural initiatives. So what are some KPIs that you might align with this SMART goal in order to accurately assess if you're completing the goal? Some of the things you can look at for KPIs are like, what is the number of leadership training sessions completed? Okay, because we're going to do leadership training by the end of the year to increase our scores with employee engagement. So what is the number of training sessions completed? What is the percentage of employees participating in engagement surveys? Listen, I work for an industry where surveys matter when we talk about climate, when we talk about culture. It's a thing, and they do a lot in the military to try to capture that type of stuff to make sure that organizations at the smaller level and the lower levels are meeting the intent of having a healthy climate and culture. So we take surveys all the time. Okay, so what is the percentage of employees even participating in this engagement survey? That's a KPI you could use for this goal. Another one is the turnover rate before and after program implementation. So sometimes you might even have you might have to get some data before you launch the goal and set the KPI. But if you have the data already, then it's perfect, because you're like, this is where we're at. And ideally, you're using data to identify a problem. Okay, so you take some data, you turn it into info, or you see a problem, you now identify that problem, and now that's a starting point. So you graph that, then you create your SMART goal around it, and then you set KPIs to measure progress, and then you actually measure the progress. And if you are able to meet your goals, you meet your goals. But now you know without a shadow of a doubt that you actually have met the goals you want. And then when you do the next iteration, you can titrate to effect, as we say in the medical community, and you can adjust those goals to make them a little more lofty or a little less lofty, or whatever that looks like. Okay. So taking those things, having your SMART goals, having your KPIs. What I want to go over next are some common mistakes that leaders make when they set goals. We can come up here and we can talk about how easy it is to set a SMART goal, find a KPI. It's like, just go do it. But there's a lot of people that make some mistakes. And there's 4 big mistakes that people make. And it sets them back, and it inhibits them from really building momentum and accomplishing the right types of goals and reaching success in whatever they're trying to reach success in. Okay, so 4 mistakes. First mistake, you're setting too many goals. If I am like, hey, here's a to-do list, and you look at it and you're like, there's 156 things on this goddamn list. Like, where are they prioritized? Even if they are prioritized, there's too many things for me to do. Maybe you're setting too many goals, and so all those goals, it's like you've broken it up into too many little micro steps, and it just becomes frustrating because there's too many goals. Okay, but maybe you've got too many goals laterally, where you're like, hey, I want to increase. You could use the sales funnel as an example. You could be like, hey, we want to increase leads by 10% this month, and we also want to increase. We want to increase appointments, and then we want to increase follow-ups, and we want to increase callbacks. We want to decrease no-shows, and we want to increase closes. We're going to do all that in this next 30 days. It's like, yo, that's like a lot. Okay, so what do you need to do? Stop setting so many goddamn goals. Okay, sounds counterintuitive. You need to set goals. Focus on 3 to 5 core goals that have the highest impact. You want to have haymaker goals that are going to actually get you to that next rung on the ladder, right? Not all the way to the top of the ladder immediately, because that's not achievable, but get you to that almost feels like a guarantee. If we do this, we've made it, and we can absolutely get there if we work hard. That's the sweet spot. 3 to 5 core goals. Then once a goal is met, you replace it. Okay? So don't set too many goals. 3 to 5 is the sweet spot. Mistake number 2. You're not aligning your goals across teams. So leaders set goals in silos, right? Planning in a bubble is a term that we use. setting goals in silos, and it's misalignment. Another term we toss around is stovepiping. So the idea is like everything is like it's up and down, but there's nothing lateral. And so if I've got, like the organization I work in, I've got 4 platoons, and every platoon does a different task, right? They have a different core thing that they do. And so if I'm not setting goals at my level in a way that align the team to get after the same big vision, I'm sending them each on individual choose your own adventure paths. They might meet their goals, but those goals like aren't really accomplishing anything for the larger team. And the motivation, the work ethic, the desire to meet goals in the future is just going to fizzle out from the team at those lower levels. So you got to make sure that you're not setting goals in silos. You're not stovepiping anything. You are keeping the team goals connected. Imagine a little piece of string connecting them to those higher level goals, right? My boss's boss talks about this, and I've had other key leaders and mentors in my past talk about this. But there's an easy way to think about this, and it applies directly to setting goals. Do what's right. Do what your boss tells you to do. Do what you want to do, in that order. All right. The idea is right is always right. So if your boss wants you to do something that's not right, it's unethical, it's immoral, it's illegal, don't fucking do it, because you're compromising yourself. And I promise you, you're going to recover from whatever professional backlash there is from some idiot telling you to do some unethical thing and then getting pissed off at you because you're not on board with his fuckery. Okay. So like, don't even worry about that. Just deal with the repercussions of separating yourself from those types of individuals, and you are quickly going to rebound, and people are going to see the integrity that you've got. You're going to move forward. So always do what's right, and then do what your boss wants you to do. So at whatever level you're at, you probably have a boss, right? That boss, all the way up to the CEO or the board or whatever that looks like at the top of that pyramid, they have a vision for the team, for the organization, for the company. If your goals don't feed into that, you might produce results, but they're not going to be results that feed into feeding the beast that is the overall vision of the company. And so you're not going to get good feedback from that because you're not contributing to team success overall. You're just contributing to your own little tiny team, okay? So that's what happens when you create goals in silos. That's what happens when you plan in a bubble, okay? Make sure your goals support 1 to 2 levels up at a minimum. If not, you want to try to tie them into company-wide objectives. All right, mistake number 1, setting too many goals. Mistake number 2, not aligning goals across teams. Mistake number 3, ignoring adjustments. All right, so if a KPI is not improving, if the needle's not moving, don't just wait, right? Adjust it. So what's the solution? You want to conduct regular goal reviews and actually track your progress. I'll give you an example. You set a KPI, you have a SMART goal, you do your thing. Let's say the SMART goal is we want to, our marketing team has a goal to increase or gain 100,000 more followers on 3 different platforms through content creation and value production in the next 90 days. Let's just say maybe 180 days, depending on the size of the company where you're already at, right? That's your goal. Number of followers is your KPI, okay? So you track your KPI, you're not on track. Okay, you're not on track, that's fine. You need to have a set point where you say, hey, at this interval, we're going to iterate, right? So at this interval, we're going to iterate. If we're tracking and we're behind glide path, let's say it's a 90-day goal, maybe it's at 15 30, 60, and 90 days. Maybe it's not every 15 days, but like, hey, if we're not starting to build that momentum within the first 15 days, we need to adjust because we only have 90 days to get this thing done. And so we need to get after it and we need to make the appropriate adjustments. If you've got a year-long goal, you might not look at that thing every 15 days or every week. You might look at it every 30 days and be like, are the KPIs appropriate? Are there any adjustments we need to make in how we're attacking the goals? Okay. So if the KPI is not getting better, you need to adjust your approach. It's that easy. Don't just wait. Don't worry. It's going to go. It's going to go. It's going to go. Like the slot machine where you're like, yo, all the fireworks are lit up and this thing's going to explode and I'm going to be a millionaire in just a second. Just like, and then you keep hitting the button and you keep hitting the button, you keep hitting the button, and then no jackpot because you're not paying attention to the fact that there needs to be an adjustment made. Okay. So the third one is ignoring adjustments. Don't do that. Make adjustments. Pay attention to your KPIs. Identify when, hey, we're not getting the momentum we need. Titrate to effect. Mistake number 4, not communicating goals clearly. So employees shouldn't just know what the goal is. They should know why it matters. We talk about this. You got to tie everything back. You got to tie it back to the bigger vision. You got to tie it back to the impact that it's going to have on the things around what that goal embodies, okay? So the solution to this is to reinforce goals in meetings, emails, one-on-ones, etc. You want to keep those goals visible, all right? If you set a goal, you call a meeting and you say, hey, welcome to quarter 3. In quarter 3, this is our goal. And you put it on the projector and it's a beautiful sans serif font and the color's right and the logo just pops and you've got the focus on the projector just right and you got the goal. Maybe you take it the next step further and you go slide, boom, in rolls a beautiful transition, KPIs, so the team knows what the KPIs are. And then that's the last fucking time they see the goal. They're going to forget about it. They're too worried about the daily grind. They're too worried about like what they're used to doing and just chugging along, okay? And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but you have to keep goals visible and you have to address goals regularly. It needs to become like a mantra. This is what we're getting after. This is what we're getting after. And if you only have 3 to 5 core goals, it's not hard for them to focus on those goals and get after the things you need to get after. So you got to reinforce your goals whenever you can. So those are the 4 mistakes that people make most often from what I've seen, from what I've experienced, and ways that you can avoid making those mistakes yourself, or you can course correct if you think you're already making those mistakes. All right, last step. We're going to go into some action steps. Here's some things I need you to do as you move away from this episode and into real life, okay? This is my challenge. First of all, pick one major goal for your team or your organization. One major goal. We talked about 3 to 5 core goals. You'll get there. Start with one. If you don't have a solid, well built out, well defined, smart goal that has KPIs aligned with it, I need you to do this like before you go to work. Take out a piece of paper, take out whatever productivity notes app, whatever that you're using, and I need you to create a goal for your team. 2, make it smart. It's like literally, it's a 2 for 1, free chicken, right? Pick one major goal and then make the goal right. Do it correctly, okay? Number 3, you want at least 2 KPIs for this goal, okay? So you're gonna come up with a goal, you're gonna make sure it's a smart goal, and then you're gonna have 2 KPIs so that you can actually measure your progress in achieving this goal to enable you to make success. And then 4th, the last thing I need you to do, I need you to communicate this thing to your team, and I need you to set RPIs, or IPRs, sorry, RPIs. I need you to set IPRs, right? Which is an in-progress review. It's a check-in timeline. Hey, this is a 90-day goal. Every 30 days, we're gonna meet, okay? Maybe it's every 15 days. Maybe it's every week. Maybe it's every fucking day. Whatever makes sense for your goal and your timeline. You break it up into chunks and you make sure the team understands, and they can report to you whether or not they are on track, if they're behind the curveball, or if they're ahead of the pace line, okay? So those are the 4 things. Make a goal, make it smart, 2 KPIs, and then actually tell your team and set it to a timeline. Do those things, and I promise you, you will immediately start to see a shift. And then you'll start to see the value of implementing SMART goals and implementing KPIs. And then you can start to work up to 3 to 5 SMART goals for your team at a time. And then you'll really start to take off. All right. If you want extra accountability, drop a comment in there, send us a message, and we will have a conversation. We can talk about what your SMART goals are. We can give you some feedback. I want to hear what you're working on, and others are going to be able to use those as examples. So get in the comments, DM us, whatever that looks like, so that we can help you work on these SMART goals and these KPIs. All right, so that's pretty much a wrap for today's episode. The last thing we have to do is tie it to this BOLD framework, okay? When we talk about the BOLD factor, to me, this ties directly into the B, which is blueprint. You're providing a blueprint for your team by creating SMART goals. You are giving them a roadmap to success, to improvement, to production, to whatever that looks like, by giving them a clearly defined goal, a clearly defined vision, right? And that's what the B is. It's providing a vision, providing guidance. Look at the BOLD factor, understand how this ties in there. This is part of your blueprint, part of your vision. So get your SMART goals, get your KPIs, get your team on board, and I promise you, you're going to see results. If you're serious about leveling up your leadership skills, please reach out, connect with me, subscribe, leave a review, share it with a friend, share it with your team. I think it would be super dope to hear about, like, going over some of these things, and we can turn them into training sessions. Reach out if you want to do that. If you want me to come in and talk about anything that you're struggling with as a team, and we can do like a consultation, we can set up a way for us to figure out how we can get you going the direction you want to go at the speed you want to go. So with no further ado, we'll move on. We'll see you next time. Lead boldly, set clear goals, always track what actually matters. Those are your KPIs. Thanks, guys. She's throwing gang signs on my podcast. Oh, hi, man. Okay, relax.